All right, well, thank you for making the right choice today, coming to the right session. You won't be disappointed. Actually, I can't guarantee that. We'll find out at the end. Before we start, I guess, looking at the slides, I want to tell you a few short stories, which I think set the scene for what we're going to talk about today. So the first story involves a court case that our company was involved with for years, helping the plaintiffs in. And through the course of this court case, which went on for multiple years, there was 30 million pages of documents produced to the other side at a cost of many, many millions of dollars. Now, that happens maybe not every day, but at least every week in the court system in the US. But what was interesting about this case is that we took a look at those documents and we did some analysis. And what we found was that 55% of those documents were actually duplicates. We also found that 25% of them contained information that could have been disposed of years earlier. And we found that this unnecessary duplicative information had cost the company, just in raw, pure cost for processing, reviewing, and producing, in the context of this one case, an extra $15 million. So that's the first case. Second case I want to tell you about, and this is a few years back, and there was numerous legal actions involving the diet drug fen-phen. And it was alleged that folks taking this drug were suffering from heart problems, lung problems, clots in the lungs, clots in the legs, and people were getting sick and dying. So long litigation against one of the makers of this drug ensued, and in the course of this litigation, a single email message was discovered from a senior executive at the company to another senior executive, which said, "Oh, great, now I'm going to spend the rest of my career defending the company against a bunch of fat people with a silly little lung problem." So what do you think happened in that case? Who do you think won and who do you think lost? So I'm going to tell you about a third case. So here's a case involving one of the oldest and most respected institutions on the planet, an auditing company, who discovered in the course of an audit that one of their largest clients was about to declare bankruptcy. So what happened? What did they do? Well, one of the senior partners had a conversation with someone in the law function, and a notice went out to everyone working on this account. Hey, by the way, I just wanted to remind you to comply with our document retention policy. Right? You all know this story, I hope. So what happens? What does the retention policy say? The retention policy says when an audit is complete, get rid of those working papers, right? So in the context of the litigation, we have a senior partner who had worked there for 18 years testify, "I've never received a notification like this. I've never received a reminder like this." So what does it look like? What does it smell like? It looks like it's a veiled instruction to get rid of stuff, right? In the context of litigation. So stuff goes away, the shredders run for days, and of course this is the end of Anderson, of Arthur Anderson. So what do these three cases have in common, right? What's the thread amongst these three cases? I think the thread is that information management in corporate America is broken. It's fundamentally broken. And we see it every day, literally every day in our practice. We see it in clients settling cases, multi-million-dollar cases, simply because it's cheaper, easier, less painful, less risky to settle than go to their archives and try and discover the information, then try and pull up the information. They know that the demons hiding in their information environment are more painful, more costly, and more risky than just settling the case. Every day this happens. Information management is broken. So what we're going to talk about today is a solution, or at least part of the solution. We're going to talk about information governance. So today you've heard a stew of acronyms around GRC, ERM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to add another one to your plate. I think the previous presenters obviously talked about information governance, so I'm not going to go into it in a lot of detail. But what I think is important here is that one of the greatest challenges when it comes to making change in our information environment is convincing senior management to do it. And I spend a lot of my time with clients helping them build this story, spread this message, get the funding, get the budget, and make the change that's required. So that's what we're going to talk about. But first of all, I want to show you some graphs that I think illustrate this beautifully. Just kidding. I think this is funny. Isn't this funny? Come on, people. Work with me here. Has it been a long day already? How about this one? I think that one is pretty profound and insightful as well. Somebody told me that people in risk management had a good sense of humor, but I guess they were wrong, right? How about this one? Probably the best pie chart that I've seen. All right, so without further ado, information management is broken. Now, I think a key point here is that we can't fix it from the bottom up, and perhaps you've experienced this, perhaps you see it in your institution. What I see time and time again is companies trying to, some lonely, soldier, out on the front lines trying to write the policy to make the change that's going to move the institution in the right direction with information management. But it doesn't happen. We need senior management support. I think, if you even just think about the problem of email, for example, everybody in every institution has an opinion about email. Everyone uses it in a slightly different way. Everyone views it in a slightly different way. So just making small changes even in the email environment is a painful process. With taking control of our information assets, we're talking about email, yes, but we're talking about making changes across our information environment that can really only be done when we have support from the top. And I think you understand this. It's the same message really for GRC in general. There was a very interesting study that came out earlier this year from The Economist that talked about information governance. And perhaps some of you have read it. If you haven't, just Google it and you'll find it. And I thought the study was just very honest and very insightful in saying, look, this information governance stuff has value, but it just lies dormant unless we can get support from the top to do it. And the only way that we can get that support is by making a compelling case for why it makes sense. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, my thoughts on how to make that case. So has everyone heard? Has anyone here not heard of information governance? Well, good. So you understand what it is, I think, from a high level. I think that it's obviously like all these other terms. In some ways, it's a rebranding of things that we've been doing for some time. Maybe it's record management, maybe it's compliance, maybe it's information management. But the bottom line is that I like this term because I think it places the emphasis on the right place, which is that we're talking about governing information. It's one of those pillars in your overall GRC strategy that we have to go after the management of information. The other way to think about it, I think, is that information clearly is something that cuts across all areas of our business. It's so foundational to what we do. I mean, even if you look at going back to the beginning of, I think, the contemporary era for GRC, which is, Anderson Enron and then SOX becoming a reality. You look at Section 404 and other sections of SOX, and they really place emphasis on the importance of having information that we can rely on. And that's really what this comes down to.